Welcome to Dundee and Angus College's Zoo Animal Behaviour and Welfare documentary based at Camperdown Wildlife Centre. As part of our course, we are doing a behavioural study on a species of our choice, my choice being the Hyacinth macaws. Zoos are a lot different from when they started. Now they are, with animal welfare being their highest priority, focusing on research, conservation and education. The 5 freedoms are the basis to all animal welfare and legislation. They were first created for livestock in 1965 and was called the Bramble Report. They were first stated as the animals must have space to stand up, lie down, turn around, groom themselves and stretch their limbs. The freedoms were updated in 1979, where the names were changed as well as the information, to freedom from hunger and thirst by ready access to fresh water and a diet to maintain full health and vigour, freedom from discomfort by providing an appropriate environment including shelter and comfortable resting area, freedom from pain, injury and disease by prevention or rapid diagnosis and treatment, freedom to express normal behaviour by providing sufficient space, proper facilities and companionship by animals' own kind, freedom from fear and distress by ensuring conditions and treatment which avoid mental suffering. Zoo legislation. Zoo Licensing Act 1981. Animals that are kept in enclosures must be able to express natural behaviour in a suitable environment. Provisions of the Animal Health and Welfare Act 2006 also apply. Dangerous Wild Animals Act 1976. Individuals that keep wild animals must do so in a way that minimises risk to the public. No person can keep wild dangerous animals without a licence granted from local authority. Circuses and pet shops are exempt. BIAZA and EAZA are organisations which produce strict husbandry guidelines, welfare policies and policies on education, conservation and research for over 100 zoos and aquariums in Britain. These organisations have policies in place to keep zoos running. BIAZA members use guided policies, surplus animal policy, transfer policy and euthanasia policy. Members must read requirements before applying. EAZA focuses mainly on nature and biodiversity law in the EU, wildlife trade delivered by CITES, zoo directive, invasive alien species regulation and animal health law. Hyacinth macaws. The 2 macaws that live in Camperdown Wildlife Centre are Skye and Navy. Hyacinth macaws, or the blue parrot, are the largest of the parrots, with a length of 40 inches from the beak to the tip of the tail, and a wingspan as large as 4 feet. Adults can weigh up to 2.6 or 3.7 pounds. The Hyacinth macaw's coloration is a deep shade of solid blue, with bright yellow patches around the eyes and the beak. These macaws are native to Central and Eastern South America. They live in palm swamps, woodlands and semi-open areas and usually avoid dense, humid forests. They can also be found along major rivers. In captivity, the Hyacinth macaw can live more than 60 years compared to up to 50 years in the wild. Role of the zookeeper and record keeping. Zookeepers' roles are feed and groom animals, clean and maintain areas, observe and interact with animals, train and handle animals, educate visitors, and keep records. ZIMS stands for Zoological Information Management System, an online system pulling medical and husbandry information into one record system, where animals wanted and available, behavioural observations, feeding logs, and much more information is stored. This is available for curators, registrars, and keepers and other animal care staff to access. Records provide an accurate account of situations and practices. Examples of records are keeper log, curator report, specimen report, nutrition report, veterinary medical records, and pathology records. Records should contain who made them, which animals are involved, when observation was made or procedure done, what practices were carried out or problems were encountered, where events took place, and why actions were taken. It is the role of the keeper to ensure all of this information is gathered and entered correctly into the ZIMS database. Indicators of good and poor welfare. The 5 freedoms are the basis for animal welfare standards, keeping in consideration the emotional state, biological functioning, and the environment. Checklists were made to monitor the Hyacinth Macaw's enclosure over time using the 5 freedoms as a basis. Here's an example. These checklists help to show if an enclosure has good or poor welfare. Good indicators are access to water, access to food and natural diet as possible, adequate space to fly, large enclosure, shelters and hides, companionship, healthy animals, and mental stimulation. Poor indicators are lack of water, lack of food or incorrect nutrition, too small an enclosure, no shelter or hides, no companion, illness or injury, no stimulation, and uncharacteristic behaviours. The next part will show the uncharacteristic behaviours in one herbivore and one carnivore. Causes and preventions of uncharacteristic behaviours for hyacinth macaws and wolves. Causes for macaws are stress, incorrect environment, constant disturbances to nesting area, pre-feeding anticipation, hand rearing disrupting the mother and infant bond. Wolves, stress, insufficient enclosure space for pack, too large a pack, pre-feeding anticipation, and hand rearing. Uncharacteristic behaviours. Uncharacteristic behaviours are when an animal performs a repetitive behaviour that is not natural in the wild. For macaws, feather plucking, chronic self-mutilation of feathers and skin, head bobbing, weaving and swaying, bouncing, pre-feeding anticipation, imprinting on human behaviours from hand rearing. For wolves, pacing behaviour and pre-feeding anticipation. Pacing can also develop in animals which travel large distances in the wild, and pack aggression. These behaviours can become habitual if allowed to continue. Preventions. Identifying and addressing the source of the distress is essential to prevention. Giving a natural environment as possible, lots of enrichment, social interaction with own kind, changing times of feeding to keep it interesting, and avoid hand rearing if it's not necessary. Hyacinth macaws nutritional requirements. The wild diet consists of palm nuts. Adelaide palm nuts are the largest part of the hyacinth macaw's diet. They need to eat large amounts of nuts to compensate for the lack of fat and protein in their chosen food. They also eat clay from along riverbanks to help neutralize the toxins in the nuts they eat. The rest of the diet is made up of fruit, seeds, and flowers. Captive diet contains nuts, fruit, and complete pellet food. The captive diet is made up to emulate the hyacinth's wild diet as close as possible, with 200 grams of nuts, 6 of each, whole nuts, almonds, hazelnuts, macadamia nuts, and palm nuts. 500 grams of fruit and veg mix, including corn on the cob, banana, orange, apple, palm fruit, cucumber, sweet corn, cooked sweet potato, mango, papaya, pomegranate, sharon fruit, pear, grapes, coconut, plum, figs, and 200 grams of complete pellet food to bulk up their diet. Food and feed presentation strategies. Citizens, or parrots, are very smart birds, and it is important to keep them stimulated, changing their food presentation up in different ways. For example, scatter feeding their favourite food, nuts, feeding in bowls, or presenting feed in puzzles. Hyacinth macaws feed from both high in the canopy on palm nuts or fruit and on the ground on seeds and flowers in the wild. So in captivity, feeding this way keeps their feeding routine natural as possible. Birds are very visual and are attracted to colours. Food that gives visual appeal can encourage them to eat and gives a form of enrichment. Improvising and using your imagination as much as possible can keep them interested. Presenting them in different shapes such as mashed, cubed, sliced, grated, whole, or as a slaw keeps it interesting and stimulating. In different ways, raw as well as cooked, in different containers and or places, on a plate, in a bowl, in a paper cup, skewered on a brand, or clipped to a high point in their enclosure can keep them stimulated. Enrichment. Behavioural study. During this study we made charts to record the behaviours the macaws made. These charts are called ethograms. We made ethograms each week to document their behaviours over time and be able to choose which we would like to focus on. Ideas for the enrichment. There are 5 areas where the enrichment can be provided: food, sensory, cognitive, social and physical. We made our designs with these areas in mind. We chose to focus on a culmination of all the areas by giving multiple places to hide food, different textures using wood, rope and plastic to cover sensory stimulation, puzzles to cover cognitive stimulation, a large piece of enrichment which both birds could use together, lots of different height of perches, a swing, a ladder for them to climb on to cover physical aspects. Observing the birds in their enclosure. While filming, it was difficult to observe the hyacinth macaws in their enclosure, so we used a wildlife camera. However, due to the macaws being very curious and can be destructive and their beaks being very strong, we had to protect the camera by making a box. Hypothesis. There will be a larger amount of chewing due to the curious nature, vocalization as a new and unknown object has been put into their enclosure, eating as their favourite food will be presented to entice them to use the enrichment, and play fighting as the female is more dominant. Here are ethograms for the 20th of the 3rd and the 27th of the 3rd. Making of the enrichment. For making our enrichment, our class worked in conjunction with an engineering class to create our ideas. Enrichment Inn. Here's some footage of Sky and Navy using their enrichment. Here are ethograms for the 24th of the 4th, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Ethograms, analysis and conclusion. We put the data collected together using the two ethograms from before and after to make an average percentage of the behaviour and compare them. In conclusion, when putting the enrichment in, the macaws were hesitant and did not want to use it at first. While the more dominant female Sky got close, the male Navy kept his distance in the morning. However, both used the enrichment in the afternoon. While there is an increase in vocalization in the morning by the male, this could be due to a different time of day the recording was made. Further research in the vocalization could be useful in future, keeping our ethograms readings at the same time each day. Here is the average percentage for Navy, the male. Navy's average percentage for play fighting and eating increased. Play fighting increased from 4.4 to 5.9%. Eating increased from 1.9 to 5.9%. Here's the average percentage for Sky, the female. Sky's average percentage for play increased from 1.1% to 8.6%. Thank you for watching.